Alrighty guys, welcome back to the 5,000 round debrief on the Century Visca, and I'm going to start off by saying that I am over this test for a couple different reasons. First off, this is the second take on this video because I did this whole thing once already and forgot to turn the microphone on. So amateur mistake leads to amateur reward, which is I have to do it again. But hey, maybe you guys will get a better video out of it by the time it's all said and done. The second reason that I'm really not liking this is I'm gonna have to eat my words a little bit on this one. I have publicly stated that I did not think that S7 was something that we should be making trunnions out of, and this test proves to me that, and there's no other way to say it, that I was completely wrong. And basically what that means is I expected to see that bolt absolutely just be chewed into oblivion by that harder trunnion. And that is not what I see. Now, looking this rifle over, guys, I see very little difference between this, the rifle that we have at 5,000, and the rifle that we saw at 3,000, with a few things, but I will run over some of our tracking points that we've been looking at for the last 5,000 rounds. So I mentioned back in video 1 that we had a little bit of a burr there on the right carrier rail, and then it progressed a little bit into 1,500, but by 3,000 it didn't do anything, and right now it's fine. It looks exactly the same as it did at 3,000 rounds, which tells me that it pretty much stabilized before the end of the 3,000 round test. The carrier tail has a little bit more progression on it than we saw at 3,000, but I mean, I can hook a fingernail on it, but there's nothing really to write home about. And that's part usually deforms because that's the part that's supposed to impact the hammer. We expect that to progress a little bit. What we don't want to see is that it's like mushrooming out and maybe potentially running into any other surfaces inside the gun, potentially locking it up, causing premature wear on those parts. The impact pattern on the back of the carrier and on the rear trunnion look almost identical. I'm assuming that when I take photographs of this that they're gonna look, I mean, you probably won't even be able to tell them apart. The same can be said for the impact surfaces of the carrier and the front trunnion. They look the same, maybe a little bit more polished than they were. And I will note that in like the 1,500 test, it did look like it looked like this surface of the carrier was done with a ball peen hammer, and now it's like mirror smooth. So that's definitely a plus. Impact pattern on the hammer looks the same. I mean, maybe a little bit more pronounced, but pretty much the same. Again, it would surprise me if those images looked any different to you guys. But if you see it, let me know. Last time we did note that there was a impact point on the primary lug on the front. That would be when the thing is closing, and it doesn't look to me like it's changed any from this one. I'll take an identical picture here for the the corresponding part on the trunnion. It also looks the same, so I don't suspect that we're going to see any difference in the close-up photos. Same thing with that with the front of the cam there, where the bolt is drug open when the gun has accelerated the carrier back and then it picks up the bolt. It looks pretty much the same. All the rivets look good. I mean, the rivets, guys, I mean, I'll roll them in really quick, but for the most part, rivets are rivets, and I don't see any of them that have buckled. And likewise, I don't see any of those plugs that look like they put into the receiver because there's no optics rail. It doesn't look like any of those have come out or come loose at all. The stock is nice and tight, which is something that can happen on AKs, especially when you shoot a high volume through them. This is typical of like wood stocks. Will kind of chatter out, right? Now here's one. So this is a little loose right here, so those could probably be tightened up a little bit. So I did note last time that we had a little bit of movement on the front sight tower. And remember, guys, this is not a critical component as far as like holding the gun together. It just holds the sights into orientation. And I can't tell whether it has moved any more or not. When I do the close-ups, we'll be able to make a definitive analysis on whether that has moved more. But keep in mind, guys, there is a limit here. So it can only progress so far forward before it starts to bind the gas tube. And that did not happen in this case. The gas tube came out really freely, so it couldn't have moved that much. And we will also see if that affects the final accuracy or not. So as far as final accuracy is concerned, though, it looks like our front sight tower, or our rear sight leaf is good. The spring is still in there. The front drum does not appear to have moved at all, and same thing with the post. It seems to be in the original orientation that I put it in. All the staking looks good on both the gas block and the sight tower. And the other thing I wanted to note is that the initial accuracy and the final accuracy were shot off of the same box. And what I mean by that is not only the same lot, not only the same case, but the same 20-round box. So the first 10 rounds were the first 10 rounds out of that box, and then the last 10 rounds through this rifle were the second set of 10 rounds out of the same box. So I just thought that was kind of cool. Widen a little bit. That might have been mirage from the barrel because it was pretty hot still. But as you can see, really, as far as the grand scheme of things are concerned, same point of impact. So what that really tells us is that the sights did not shift any through the whole 5,000 rounds, and that's really what I care about when it comes to a gun like that, is are the sights moving around? Is the drum loose? Is it properly made? So now, will this gun probably, with a proper optic, still shoot the same group? Probably. So, but as you can see, the important thing is that it's still hitting in the same space. So what I will say is we continued the same air-cool method that we used previously. Basically, if you guys didn't pay attention to the 3,000 round test, you can run about 9 magazines through this thing before it gets over our heat limit. So to mitigate that a little bit, we did some wind sprints with the gun stripped, basically running up and down the range, trying to get some airflow around this thing so that we could shoot more magazines through it before we had to stop. And if we did that, we got an extra 3 mags before we went over 600. Well, what that does, though, is it increases the amount of heat that is all up here. And we got some pretty bad melting this time. So we started doing that about halfway through the testing last time. So you can think of this as approximately 2 hours, 2-3 hours of continuous heat on the rifle. And we definitely got some plasticky extrusion stuff going on there on the front. Again, this is to be expected. Lots of bullets down the pipe, not a whole lot of break for the rifle, and that's what you can expect. If you have a problem with that, you need a rifle with heat shields, or you need to get wood furniture, but wood furniture can also catch on fire. All right, on to the one that I thought was going to kill this test. And if you remember back to 3,000 rounds, most of the way through we had the staking come a little bit loose on the carrier. And what I mean by that is right here at the front, if you guys aren't paying attention, that stake had begun to walk out. And what I am pleased to report, actually, is that this did not change. So it's exactly the same as it was before, except for it looks like both halves of the stake are now mobile. Moving on from there, we can see that the piston's in pretty good shape. I did take the liberty of taking some photographs before I cleaned the piston, just so you guys can see how nasty it gets when you shoot that much ammo through the front of it. I did take the liberty of asking, between the last test and this one, whether this issue that we've got here and the plastic situation would be something that would be covered under the warranty, and the response that I got was basically that the Visca comes with a lifetime warranty, and so I guess that means if you wanted to melt your Visca into a puddle of plasticiness, then you could do that and get a new set of handguards if you wanted to. Alrighty guys, on to the moment that we've all been waiting for, final headspace. Field gauge. Just for the heck of it, we're going to use this no-go gauge too. No dice. So that said, guys, this is not the end of the testing. I have one more treat in store for our friend the VSKA here. In the next 5 minutes, this rifle is going to be boxed up and sent via UPS to my buddy Brian Keeney at Occam Defense, and he is going to give us a push on that pin right there to determine how much force is compelling it to stay in. And if you guys remember back to our last analysis, we came up with numbers of approximately 1,000 to 6,000 pounds being the limits for how much force should be used to remove one of those pins, or how much force it is in static state to keep the pin from moving. And guys, pending the results of that test, I don't see anything, just about dropped my rifle, but I don't see anything in my hands to DQ this rifle. It ran all 5,000 rounds without a parts breakage, which was our parameters, and I didn't have any catastrophic issues, nothing to give me any indication that it is unsafe. And I think that you guys can keep us honest on this and say that we pretty much threw the book at this guy. We tried our best to kill the VSKA, and we failed. So that is especially true, seeing as how we did not have any malfunctions in the last segment of the test, except for one potentially user-induced malfunction in the form of a slam fire. I'm the person who shot it, and I don't really remember. It was a little bit of a haze on whether I was feathering the trigger or not, but that is as close as we got to a malfunction in this segment of the testing. So again, pending the results of that test in the next video, we'll know. And I'm also going to ask Brian to use his SAMI gauges. He has a set of SAMI 762 gauges out there. We're going to see if he can't do a headspace with those things while we're out there. I don't expect the results to be any different, but it's always good to get a second opinion. He'll be using the same procedure to headspace the gun that we used. Although I am going to tell him that he has to follow the procedure to the T, and he doesn't just get to piggyback off of my clean job. He has to actually clean the gun too. So anyway, guys, next video we'll be talking about barrel pins, and also I think I'm going to do like a 0 to 5,000 kind of like comparison with the close-ups that I took, just to see where the gun started and where it is now. And other than that, guys, I'm going to go ice my shoulder, and also say thanks to our local Leos for coming out and helping us shoot the test. It would not have been fun without them, and I also thought it was just a really good opportunity to get them some trigger time that they just simply don't get these days, with budgets being limited and things like that. It's just a really good opportunity for them to get some much needed trigger time and also get some experience on a rifle they otherwise would not have had an opportunity to shoot. Well, I hope that you guys enjoyed this series, and again, there's one more part, but I hope that you guys enjoyed, and hopefully we'll see you guys on a future video.